All right, welcome back to 14 Watches. And today we will be discussing the Tudor Black Bay Steel from Baselworld 2017. Brand new release. And I went ahead and I picked one up. I actually bought it on the leather strap and ordered the bracelet afterwards. And I have it on there and sized from today. And I have to say, it belongs on the bracelet. It's very cool on that leather strap. I didn't give it much of a chance. I needed to break it in and get used to wearing it that way. But just the fit and feel and the way it was working on my wrist, I didn't love it. So I got the bracelet. I would have bought it on the bracelet initially, but who I was working with did not have one available. I was kind of itchy and I wanted to get it in, so I did and came to an agreement on how to get the bracelet afterwards, so I made that happen. So let's talk about the positives and any possible negatives right off the top. And I'll try to go over some simple specs, and then I'll also give it a comparison to a few pieces that I've either owned or know about, and maybe try to challenge a group of watch buyers. I'll give you a little bit of a challenge, give you a little food for thought, because this piece is jacked to the gills with features at a price point that really hits an incredible sweet spot, in my opinion. And I know I own it and I bought it, but I mean, if you just use your brain, I'm gonna do the best I can to remove any bias from why I would think what I'm gonna share, and really think about it. It makes a lot of sense. So this is a Black Bay, but with two major changes. It's got a date. The Black Bay Red or Burgundy, the blue, the black, all the versions of Black Bay prior had an in-house movement. You know, they used to have ETA 2824. Then they had the in-house movement without a date. So they've added a date, and they have now added a steel bezel that comes to the party. And I've got to say, the steel bezel is very cool. Of course, you know, these things are debatable. You like what you like. If you like a little pop of color with the red or the blue or the black, you get the one you want. But this one was very attractive to me because it has a date. The bezel action is fantastic. All right, I've got to tear up. I'm going one-handed here. I'm holding the phone. But even this, you know, it's not that hard to sort of pull off. If I'm wearing the watch and I use my right hand to turn the bezel, it's a piece of cake. Now, I previously owned a Omega Seamaster 300, a Bond, an older reference, you know, from 02 or 03. I love that watch. I think that's a killer bang for buck, you know, used luxury watch. But the bezel action on that is an embarrassment. It doesn't move. So this is the first time I've actually had a luxury watch that had a unidirectional rotating bezel, and it does a great job. The bezel works great. I love the stainless bezel insert. I love the dial. The seconds hand, the minute, and the snowflake hour have this really great chrome. I don't know what the material is. The maxi dial, very good lume, comparable to Seiko lume. And you can scoff at that if you want, you folks out there that are Seiko haters, but they do lume right, and this one's on par with it. It's got the instant date change at midnight. There's no threat of harming the movement, you know, like with a Rolex Explorer 2 or that kind of a watch, 5-digit, between 9 p.m. and 3 a.m. Whenever the watch is set that way, you can't change the time or the date. You can damage the movement. I actually damaged my SKX doing that. Complete user error. But I don't like that. I don't like that about watches. Tudor has improved that. They've done away with that. That's why, just internally, this watch is a freaking home run. 70-hour power reserve. I mean, this thing, if it's in your regular rotation, you'll never have to manually wind it. And I know their sales pitch is take it off Friday night and put it on Monday morning and it'll still be running. And there's something to that. So you can set the date, you can set the time. It has a huge power reserve. The crown action is a 10 out of a 10. It's incredibly easy to unscrew. When you need to manually wind it, it's just like butter. There's no resistance, there's no loud sound, there's no clicking, there's no nothing. It is just tremendous. The rivet bracelet is really a beautiful bracelet. Very nice, very robust. It's got some thickness, it's got some weight on the wrist. This is a Thule watch. This is a watch that means business. Now, the one thing that I will come out and say I'm not a fan of is the case thickness. It's a little thick. So if you're somebody who's sensitive to that, beware. Go to an AD that you have near you. If you're going to buy gray market or you're going to buy online with an AD or whatever, try before you buy, especially if case thickness is an issue for you. It is for me, and it's fine. All right, I'm living with it. It's not my number one watch. My number one watch is the Rolex Explorer 2. This is the perfect watch for me, and it's got a very thin case, especially for a sports watch. It fits around my wrist almost like it's stuck to it. This one, it juts off. Okay, it's not crazy. It's not the biggest, thickest watch in the world, but it's a little thick, and I really wish that Tudor somehow got that figured out. Yes, it's got 200 meters. It's not a 500 meter or 1,000 like a deep sea, but it's sort of, to me, it fits sort of like that. It's a big, thick watch. I just wish it was a little thinner. If you've ever had an Omega Seamaster, that watch is a 300 meter diver, and it is razor thin. Man, does that, and of course with that bond bracelet, it just fits around your wrist so tight, and I really like that. Not tight like uncomfortable, but very flat, the wrist profile. And another thing in the watch world is that the case thickness is not always something that's even advertised. It's amazing to me that Joma Shop or Watch Max or anywhere, or even Tudor itself doesn't say what the millimeter thickness is on the watch page for this watch. I mean, that should be an absolute must report characteristic of a watch, at least for me. Now, I'll admit I'm a little more sensitive than most about case thickness, but it's something that should be advertised. It should be fair warning. You need to know what you're getting into. But with that said, if you get the bracelet to fit you right, you will be happy. It doesn't fit that much thicker on the wrist than my SKX 009 Pepsi dial or Pepsi bezel. It's very close to that. In fact, I would say this is the luxury version, and I would say very good luxury version of an SKX. You love an SKX, you will love a Black Bay. Absolutely love it. Okay? I'd like to just make one more comment, and this is where I said I would challenge some of you watch buyers. The Rolex Submariner, the almighty Submariner. No date, 5-digit, 6-digit, whatever ceramic. The Submariner is an all-time classic. It's a Hall of Famer. It can't be replaced, all right? But there's some watches out there that I think are sub killers, and I think this watch is a sub killer. I think the Pelagos is probably the real watch that's a sub killer. But see, the thing about that watch is it's a titanium watch, and a titanium watch is a different animal. For better or for worse, it's got a lightness to it because titanium is super light. And it's hard to compare that finish, that feel, to a stainless steel piece. But be that as it may, the Pelagos has loom on the bezel, incredible loom on the dial, 70-hour power reserve, just everything about it. Now, obviously, cosmetically, a sub is a sub. A sub is a classic. A sub is a Hall of Famer. The Pelagos is a little different. It's got a different look. It's got, it's got that real bright blue version, or it's got the black version, or you can get the left-handed version with the kind of the vintage, almost like a gilt dial with the faded cream indices. But that watch, spec-wise, slaps a sub around. These things are running at +1, +2. This watch right here is running at +1 a day, like without fail. I think this watch kills a sub. I mean, I'm talking about straight up. A sub is a $7,000 watch, give or take, depending on condition, new, whatever. But go on Joma Shop, and we're talking about a sub C no date. We're talking $7,000. We're talking about 5-digit subs that are, on Watch Recon, 6,500, 6,200, 5,500, kind of beat up, no box. I mean, what are you paying for there? What are you paying for? You're paying for a sub, and I'd love to own a sub. And I've thought about taking this watch and one other one that I own and kind of selling them at a loss, a little bit of a loss, because they're not new anymore, they're used, and getting a sub. But why? What are you reaching at? Why? There's no reason. It's not a better watch. Sorry, sub guys. I know you have some Submariner guys that are going to say, geez, BS, it's Rolex, what's inside of it? Well, I think Tudor has a chip on its shoulder. These are sister companies. They're owned by the same foundation. But the people who work at Tudor have a hair across them, and they're sick of living in the shadow of Rolex. And I'm telling you, the way I'm reading that is because they come out and say, they've made a point to say our in-house movement was engineered and created without the assistance of Rolex. Okay, they said that. Now, I understand a big draw of Tudor is, well, that's made by Rolex. They use the same quality as Rolex. And they're not. The fit and finish is not exactly the same as a Rolex. I'm going to tell you that right now. All right, I've had a couple of 6-digit Rolexes. My main watch is a 5-digit Explorer 2. They're not the same. Okay, there's little things that are missing from a Tudor that exist in all Rolexes. But at what cost? You're telling me a Rolex Submariner is $4,000 to $5,000 better than this watch right here? The answer is there's no way. There is absolutely no way. Bang per buck, this watch absolutely slays. It's one of the greatest in the market right now, in my personal and professional opinion. So Submariner guys,